Alright fellas, here we are back in Pokemon Masters, and today we're going to be taking a little overview for the Super Spotlight Costume Scout that's going to be rerunning tomorrow on March 9th for the costume event Solve the Case, the mystery game event, which featured the release of special costumes Steven, Shauna, Zinnia, and Lyra last year back in April of 2023. They are now getting a official free rerun, which is obviously great and whatnot. So yeah, we're going to be taking a look at the event, not really the event, the characters, and seeing how strong they are, how well they've aged. And, well, I wouldn't say that these characters have exactly aged. Pretty much. I mean, I don't think that these characters do anything more or... Well, I don't think they do anything less than what they were able to do back when they released. There really is, I don't think, too much of an argument that. The only release was the Ultimate Battle, which invalidates most of the game, realistically speaking. And even then, Steven has found himself in spots where he's actually potentially able to do something. Anyway, whatever. So let's go ahead and hop into this because I know this video is going to be really long. I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, don't summon for this banner. The rerun for these special costumes, seasonal banners, whatever, horrible. They're always horrible. This is going to feature 4 sync pairs at a split 2% total pull rate with 0.5% for any specific special costume sync pair. They will be re-releasing with the paid tiered scout, which should, right? I haven't actually, I haven't fact-checked. I could, but I'm not going to because I don't think it's that important. It should come with a 10,000 paid gem tiered scout, which gives some 5-star power-ups and a guaranteed selection of whichever one of these 4 you want. But I still would not say it's worth it. They're not worth 10,000 paid gems, as good as Steven and Zinnia can be, and to a lesser extent Lyra and Shauna. I don't think that they're absurdly strong. They're good, though. They're good, though, for sure. I just would not recommend summoning on this banner just because of pull rates being as bad as they are. But I digress. We'll go and look at these characters because there is the chance that you may want them on a paid, like a select scout, right? A 3,000 paid gem select scout. We did get a special costume select scout back during the 4th anniversary, so there's a chance that we could get that again sometime in the future. Anyway, I digress. Let's go ahead and look at Steven here. Steven is pretty good. Just to be honest, he's pretty good. Very good. Stupidly good. Yeah, okay. Whatever. Either way, looking at Steven's stats, you're probably not going to EX him, but I mean, you can. Level 1, 5 stars here. He's got 176 defenses, 681 health, 290 speed. He's a tech sync pair. He's got 448 attack. Though, with this guy, the stats are not what you're looking for. The stats really are not it. He does have good attack, and 6-star X, obviously, 488 attack. That's good. The defenses are fine, the speed's pretty solid, HP's fine. Nothing crazy really about the stats. Attack's good, but he's normal, so yeah. But that's, again, not really what we're looking for. This guy's abilities lie in the fact that he is basically a support character without the support stats or support sync move effect. He's got Tackle, which in itself doesn't do anything crazy. Super Effective Next. He's able to apply Super Effective Next to an ally, which is useful. Binding Leer, which is a 1-gauge 3-use move. Activation condition is when there's an enemy with a lowered type rebuff, and deactivation condition is when there's no longer an enemy with a lowered type rebuff. The move never misses. It lowers attack, defense, and speed of all enemies, because it is AoE, by 2, applies the no evasion effect to the target, and applies restrain to the target. This is very powerful. No evasion is very, very helpful for like moves that potentially could miss, right? It's good for like Latias or like any other enemy that can buff their evasion. I don't know how it works when it comes to like your accuracy though. Like if you debuff, like if your accuracy is debuffed, I don't know how that affects it. I haven't actively checked that out. But either way, being able to deal with like evasion buffers is extremely helpful. And it also applies Restrain, which is not in itself an amazing ability, but it is useful for powering up their allies who have the Restrain as a multiplier, like Nessa or Celine. And it's also useful in applying a status change to enemies that need it, such as, I think, Yuxi? Yuxi wants a status change on one of its health bars, so being able to apply Restrain would fulfill that condition. He's also got Mystery Solved, his trainer move, which raises an ally speed by 2 and increases physical moves next by 3. It targets an ally, so you've got yourself super effective next and +3 physical moves next, as well as defense debuffs and attack and speed. This is already a really busted kit, if you could not tell. This is an extremely strong kit. Going into the passives, he's got Rebuff, reducing hit weakness, lowering enemy type rebuff by 1 when the attack move is successful each battle. So if you're facing a fire weak enemy, you lower enemy fire rebuff. And again, you apply super effective next, physical moves next, defense debuffs, speed and attack debuffs. this Steven is already insane. This is an insane ability, because this just makes Steven, like, the single best enabler in the game. I mean, maybe, like, he's in contention for, like, with, like, other characters, like, I don't know, maybe near, like, Chase, or Neo Champion Blue, I don't know, something like that. But still, this in itself is crazy, especially for the fact that he's a special costume unit. He's got Team Immunizing Command 9, applying Condition Nullification effect to all allies when the user's trainer uses a move. Effect can only activate once per battle, so applying the Condition Nullification effect to the allies is pretty helpful just in general. Team Easy Target Speed Up 9, raising ally speed by 1 when the user's attack move is successful against an enemy with the No Restraint effect. So you use your Binding Leer, apply No Restraint, and now you can apply team speed buffs, meaning that Steven is not only an amazing enabler with super effective next, up to 6 physical moves next, max defensive debuffs, and -1 on enemy type weakness rebuff, he's also able to apply gauge management with the speed buffs here, and he's also not a gauge hog, because both of his moves are 1 gauge moves, which is very helpful. This is just a 1 out of 5. My Steven is 1 out of 5 without the 6-star EX, and he has been immensely helpful in, for one, just having fun, and for two, in actually being a strong and capable character that's able to help out allies. Steven's abilities are so strong that you can pretty much take any weaker, like, offensive-based unit in the game. Like, we can go to 3 or 4 stars, and we can look at, like, some strikes and techs, and Steven can enable them. Obviously, you know, being physical, right? He can enable, Brock and Tyranitar here. Brock does have Cakewalk, so the speed debuffs from from Steven's buddy move here is able to apply speed debuffs for that. And again, defense debuffs, physical moves next, super effective next. Super effective next on Brock's training move is pretty helpful, right? Obviously, it doesn't help special allies. That's not really the case. Bruno, I mean, just defense debuffs, right? Defense debuffs, physical moves next, super effective next. That's perfectly fine. Bugsy, again, same thing. Defensive debuffs. He's able to apply physical moves next, super effective next. Bug rebuff, right? If you need help, like, clearing any stage and you're trying to on-type it, right? If you're having issues on-typing a stage, Steven's rebuff alone is already a pretty good buff, but then, obviously, other than that, you've got the defensive debuffs, you've got the physical moves next, the special moves, like the super effective next, the speed buffs for Gauge. That's pretty insane, right? And not only that, like, even if you're not trying to empower weaker allies, you still are debuffing attack, defense, and speed, all of which are really good for activating multipliers. Like, look at Signasuit Silver, Dojo Gloria, any other character that has, like, a combination of, like, Cakewalk or Relentless, Hunter's Instinct. I think is Overpower special attack or physical attack? I think it's physical attack. Pecking Order, whatever it may be. You can activate all of those multipliers just with Steven here pretty much doing what he was going to do anyway, which is extremely helpful. Going into the grid, I'm not going to, like, waste too much time on it, because, again, we don't have much time here. How long are we in already? 8 minutes, fair enough. He's got Mighty Friend 9 on the trainer move at 3 out of 5, which is another physical moves next on the trainer move. So instead of +3, it's +4, which is insane. Trainer move NPR, I don't need to explain why this is great. You get more uses of this. Full Bracing Command 2, 30% chance to buff both defenses by 1. That's fine. It's nothing crazy, but that could be helpful for his defensive utility. Easy Target, Charge 9, Charge Engage when attacking an enemy with the No Evasion effect. This makes the speed engage management even better with Steven. Easy Target, Staggering Hit 4, 50% chance to to make the enemy flinch when attacking an enemy with the No Evasion effect. Also extremely helpful. 50% flinch chance just for attacking the enemy. That is quite helpful too, especially with all the other utility he provides. Trainer Sync Redemption, probably wouldn't use this, but you can, and Adrenaline 2 as well, just for some sync utility, plus giving NPR. Sync Free for All, applying free moves next on the sync move. All these abilities are essentially the same thing to me. And I guess Safety Tether as well, so yeah. But the big thing with this guy is that he's also got a Sync Nuke. You can build him for a Sync Nuke because he does have the innate multiplier of Relentless here with defense debuffing, but he also has Restraining Sync up 9 for a 90% multiplier when the enemy is restrained. So if you want to partner this guy up with Palmer, who is also a physical moves next god from his passive here, then you can do that, and you can get a very strong Palmer as well as an actual Sync Nuke out of Steven if you want to opt to do that, which is not a bad idea. Those two can work pretty well together, if invested properly. Hell, even without investment, I think even without investment, that team's pretty fucking strong. He's got Restrained Scope 9, lowering enemy accuracy when attacking a restrained opponent. That's just another debuff to add to the list of debuffs. And then Team Debut Dash for a little bit of speed buffs. I wouldn't say that the grid is extremely necessary for Steven, but if you do want to nuke with him, obviously it'd be helpful. And if you want a little bit more utility with Trainer Move NPR and Mighty Friend and the flinching and whatever else in here, you can opt to grid him. My Steven is 1 out of 5 though, and he is excellent, just outright excellent. So keep that in mind. Moving on to the next special costume sync pair, we have special costume Shauna. She is a support sync pair with Klefki. Looking at her stats, she's got 585 health, 284 defense, 276 special defense, and 270 speed. 6-star EX, 316, pretty much 320 roughly in both defenses, and 685 health. My problem with this character is that her HP is too low, outright. It just straight up is too low. I don't have her 6-star EX. I'm definitely going to do that because I do plan on showcasing her probably tomorrow, but that's my biggest problem with this character. Her HP is just way too low for me. But other than that, I think she has a really solid kit. Not really for Stadium, but for like the Gauntlet or for just any game mode that's like longer and doesn't like hit as hard instantly. This character could be useful. I'm not going to say she's like absurd. Tackle, effectively useless, just a little bit of like a 1 gauge spammable. Mirror Shot, 30% chance to debuff enemy accuracy, 2 gauge, that's pretty solid. Potion for healing, and then her training move, which applies the status move defense effect to the eye field of play, stat reduction defense to the eye field of play, and increases crit of all allies by 2. So she's able to be a crit support, which is quite helpful, as well as apply defenses against enemy status moves, as well as a nullify ally stat reduction, which is quite helpful. Nothing like absurd, right? But in the right battles, obviously all of this stuff is helpful because they do like giving enemies gimmicks and whatnot, obviously. The big thing is that she does this, which is Team Stat Steal 9 and Reliatory Stat Steal 9, which debuffs and... Okay, let me make sure I'm reading this right. 100% chance of lowering one of the target's stats by 1 when the user's attack move is successful. It debuffs one of the 5 core stats at random, and then it raises that stat for all allied sync pairs by the same amount. So she's hitting an enemy, debuffing that stat, and then buffing it for allies, which is pretty good. 100% chance of lowering one of the following stats of an opponent that attacked the user by 1 when the user is hit by an attack move, one of the 5 stats, and then raises the user stat by that same amount. So when she's attacking, she's debuffing a random enemy stat and buffing it for allies, and then when she's getting hit, she debuffs a random stat and raises it for herself. Very, very strong. And then full bracing command 9, buffing both defenses when the trainer uses a move. So she does add some bulk to herself, which is good because her defenses are fine in base, but her HP is still, again, quite low. Even with level 150, the HP is not really like absurdly great. If they give her like a plus 100 HP here, I probably wouldn't complain as much, but still, whatever, I digress. Her big thing is that she steals stats. At 1 out of 5, I wouldn't say she's like absurd or anything like that. Could be great for the Gauntlet, right? Being able to debuff enemy stats just for straight up like existing is very, very strong in and of itself. So that she could probably do some good solos, especially against like Latios, right? Like I don't expect Latios to be able to handle what Shauna's dishing out all too well. Probably not. Probably not. But yeah, either way, that's good. It's good stat debuffing. She's not great for like support-wise, right? Because you're only getting 1 random stat buff pretty much per turn. But if you do like random stat buffs and whatnot, and you do potentially want to do like some Gauntlet stuff, this character could be good for you. I just would not say she's very consistent for like Stadium battles. Definitely not Ultimate battles. Extreme battles, she could be pretty good depending on the gimmick, right? Because, you know, stat reduction defense and status move defense and whatnot, that's useful. So, yeah. Anyway, looking at 3 out of 5, she's got Reliatory Stat Steal 9 again, and then Team Stat Steal 4. Effectively, these abilities again, which is already really good, right? She's getting it attacked and then debuffing an enemy stat twice, and then she's attacking and has a guaranteed chance to debuff enemy stats once, and then has a 50% chance again to do the same thing, which effectively doubles her output in stat debuffing, stat buffing, whatever, right? Which is great. So you're able to do that again. That's probably the 2 single biggest nodes on her grid with dupes. She gets Training Move NPR. I wouldn't say is that helpful. Training Move Physical Damage Reduction, applying the Physical Damage Reduction effect to the eye field of play. That's fine. Nothing crazy. Endurance, pretty good for her tanking ability, because again, I don't think she's the best tank in the world. Team Grand Entry 1 as well as Team Fierce Entry 1. These 2 abilities are okay. I honestly don't think they're all that fantastic. But I mean, you could pick them up if you want to, but +1, I don't think is that impactful. But hey, maybe it could give you a little bit of boost to start, maybe. Attack Trap 4, 50% chance to leave the enemy trapped when attacking the enemy. That's mostly, again, helpful for like legendary arenas that need a status change or something, or just helping her do a little bit of extra damage, just because obviously she's got Mirror Shot and Tackle, right? So in that aspect, I mean, that could be helpful, but I don't think this is going to be amazing. Just it's just general use stuff, I would say. She gets Team Give Me 5/1, which raises all core stats by 1 of all allies after using the sync move. This is pretty good because obviously it's all stats plus 1. Combine that with her random stat buffing, and you could give allies a pretty good amount of just overall stats just by using the sync move and then doing what Shauna generally would do anyway. And then other than that, she's got potion stuff, honor roll, 1 for mirror shot for accuracy debuffs, and that's pretty much it. I wouldn't say she's a crazy character, but definitely with the grid, it's pretty much doubling her efficiency to be able to debuff enemy stats as well as buff her own and allies as well. And then obviously Team Give Me 5, potentially Team Grand Entry and Fierce Entry. You can get some more debuffs there, or sorry, more random buffs for your allies. Not random, but more buffs for your allies in general. Could be helpful there. And then some other stuff like potions and whatnot could be just generally useful stuff. More like a generally good character than a specific tailor hyper specific type of character, I guess. Stat buffs, random stat debuffs. I don't think you can give her too much specification there, I guess. Whatever. Going to next, we got Special Costume Zinnia, who I hype up a ton. This character was one of my favorite characters of 2023 just because she is stupid. She is stupidly strong. She's the tech dark character with Thievel. Looking at her stats, 424 attack, 163 defense, 187 special defense, 287 speed, 635 health. 6-star EX gives her 464 attack, 200, we'll say about 210 in both defenses, and 327 speed with 735 health. Is she sharing health with Shauna? Is her HP like around the same level of Shauna? It's better than Shauna. It's better than Shauna. That's the problem. That's the problem that I have with Shauna most of the time. But whatever. Anyway, whatever. So her stats are fine. Big thing is that you're looking for is attack, right? This character is a thief. She is the Phantom Thief, which makes sense. She's got Crunch, which is a 3-gauge move, 118 power. We'll say about 108 power, 3 out of 5, 20% chance to debuff defense. X attack all for ally attack support, which is quite helpful, really, but this is also good for her to buff her own stats. Then her trainer move, Catch Me If You Can, which applies the stat reduction defense to the ally field of play, raises evasion by 1, and raises crit by 2. These characters have a lot of defenses. Like, Shauna's got, I think, stat reduction effect and also status. And then like status move effect or something like that. And then Steven's got no evasion, condition nullification. Fucking okay, sure. But whatever. It also raises her evasion and then crit by 2. So you're able to do full self-sufficiency with her crit and attack buffing, which really you may not have to do because she's got Thieving Night Slash, a 2-gauge one-use move with 220 power that targets all enemies and never misses. Activation condition is when the enemy has a lower type dark rebuff on the opponent field of play, and deactivation condition is when there's no longer a dark type rebuff on the enemy field of play. The move never misses, returns the target's raise stats to normal, and then raises the users by the same amount, and then attacks. Except in circumstances, the successful attacks with this crit attacks become crits, and then it applies the no stat increase effect to the opponent field of play. Meaning that Zinnia, if you have enemies with stat buffs, she takes those stats, raises them herself, and then attacks, and then makes it so the enemy can't raise their stats. If they use a trainer move or a move to buff their stats, it will fail. For as long as the effect is in play, which is pretty strong. That is very, very strong. That's amazing. And then her innate sync multiplier here is the more the user stats are raised, the greater the power of this attack, the more stat buffs you have, right? It's very good. Passive skills here, she's got Team Dark Rebuff Command, Team rebuff down to command dark. Lowers dark rebuff of all opposing sync pairs by 1 stat rank when the user's trainer uses a move each battle. The first time the user's trainer uses a move each battle. So she's able to lower dark rebuff. This is how you get the activation condition for her buddy move, and of course, dark rebuff is good. 30% multiplier for all dark allies on your team, including yourself. That's just really helpful. Unbuffed Foe, freebie 9, 100% chance to apply free moves next when the user's attack move is successful while none of the stats are raised. This is very gauge efficient, right? If she's able to have the enemy not have any stat buffs, she becomes like adamant pretty much to where her moves are costing nothing to use, which is great. It just means that you can partner up with more gauge-hungry allies, and she will not be a detriment to your team, which is very helpful. And then Vigilance to protect from crits, that's just useful in general. That means you don't have to run as a Licky skill, which you weren't going to do anyway, but I mean, sure, it's helpful. So this is just a 1 out of 5. Obviously 1 out of 5, she doesn't have anything in the grid, but this is pretty helpful already. You're able to steal enemy stats, raise them for yourself, support with attack buffs, as well as apply dark rebuff for ally damage, and be very gauge efficient. That's probably a very, very good thing for her. I don't think she's crazy at 1 out of 5 or anything like that, but I think it's pretty helpful. She can partner up with a lot of Dark-type allies and help out, especially modern ones like Akari. Akari is not a bad one to help her out, as well as obviously her helping out Akari with the Dark rebuff. They work pretty well together. You got Marnie here. They work fine together as well. I've never tried Archer. Maybe Archer would be helpful, right? Because you could debuff the stats with Zinnia and then debuff the enemy's speed with Archer. It may be helpful. I don't know. Either way, you can also partner with Cyrus. Whatever it may be, it can work out. Where this character gets crazy is the grid, because she's got Rising Tide, Buff Block Extension, Better Prepared, Unbuff Foe Staggering Hit 6, Unbuff Foe Sync Up 9, Insult to Injury, and Defense Crush on Crunch. Oh my god. She's got Innate Rising Tide. The more her stats are raised, the more it powers up her Sync move. She also has that as the innate multiplier, so this is already a 240% total multiplier to her. And then we've got another 90% with Unbuffed Foe Sync Up 9, which is another, again, 90% multiplier, again for just having the enemy stats not be raised. This is extremely potent in Stadium. Not the Unbuffed Foe Sync Up 9, but the Rising Tide, the enemy stats dealing. Why this ability is so good is because, again, if you want a Stadium God, you take Zinnia, you bring the parameter in the Stadium that is +3 stats up on all enemies, you use probably the trainer move with Zinnia so you can actually activate her buddy move, then turn 2, you use the buddy move, steal all the enemy stat buffs, max all of your stats out, and then they're left with nothing, and you've got everything. You've got Rising Tide maxed out in turn 2, and the only thing that Zinnia needs is to then use her trainer move again to max her crit, or you bring a crit support, whichever you want to do. It's absurdly strong. It's an absurdly strong ability. Just in Stadium, that's really good. It's also relatively helpful in any battles where the enemy may buff their stats a lot within a quick amount of time, such as random extreme battles or something, where they may raise their offensive stats, defensive stats, whatever. You can just take them with Zinnia. Very, very nice there, because again, you are then applying the no stat increase effect to the enemies, which makes them again unable to increase their stats. So then they are stuck with 0 stats, and Zinnia has all of them, just effectively turning the enemy multipliers down, right? Because if they have like Furious Brawn, Furious Brain, Haymaker, or like Inertia, Ramming Speed, whatever it may be that like requires a stat buff, you've nullified it instantly, which is really solid there as well. But I think that the spot that Zinnia definitely shines in the most is Stadium, because you're able to apply the stat increase effect to all enemies. She will decimate pretty much any non-sentry entry off-type stage without really any trouble, right? Especially effectively at 3 out of 5, because her nuke is absurd. 464 attack with, what, 240 plus 90, 330% in total multipliers? Because I'm pretty sure Rising Tide is 120%, times 2 for 240, plus 90. 330% in total sync nuke multipliers, man. That's absurd. That's definitely absurd. And even without Zone, you've still got that -1 dark rebuff, which is applying a 30% buff. Yeah, that's pretty good. Other than that, she does have Better Prepared 3 and Insult to Injury 4 DPS options. I would not recommend picking these up because it's just not needed. She doesn't need the extra power there for her DPS, because your nuke is already so strong. Crunch isn't going to do like crazy damage anyway, so I wouldn't say it's really worth building for. But I mean, you could do that. If you wanted to do that, you definitely could. It's not a bad thing to try and go for. Let's see, you can, and you can also definitely build her full nuke. You can build her full nuke with pretty much little effort. Sorry, right here, yeah. You can pretty much build her full nuke without effort. This is it. You've got yourself Rising Tide, Unbuff Foe Sync Up 9. You've got the Buff Block Extension, which is extremely helpful because it means the enemies can't debuff they can't buff their stats for longer, and Zinnia is just benefiting from everything. Other than that, she does have Unbuff Foe Staggering Hit 6. This is also really strong. 70% chance to make the enemy flinch when attacking an enemy while none of their stats are raised. This is very, very helpful for like any legendary arena, but you also got to consider I'm pretty sure anytime a Legendary Arena bar resets, that would get rid of the buff block effect, where they can't debuff their stats, right? Or they can't buff their stats. So they are now allowed to buff their stats, meaning that if they buff their stats at all, Zinnia's flinch is going to be effectively useless, because then you can't flinch them, right? And you can't steal her stats because it's only one use. That is probably the biggest problem with Zinnia, is that she's only a one-time stat stealer, so to speak. So either way, I think that's still a really good kit. And even outside of that, she does have some pretty solid abilities with Defense Crush 9 if you want debuffing, Crunch Honor Roll 2 for another chance to debuff enemy defense, 60% chance to debuff enemy defense, and then a guaranteed chance with Defense Crush. It's pretty helpful. And then Insult to Injury and Better Prepared 3 for multipliers. If you do want to run them, you can. Either way, Zinnia's best thing is definitely her nuke, as well as her 70% flinch chance. She excels in Stadium, pretty decent elsewhere as well. So yeah, have fun with that one. Have fun running Zinnia. Especially when we start getting like a Dark Week Ultimate Battle. I think that, hey, depending on how it goes, Zinnia may be pretty damn good for that. She just might. And finishing off here with the final special costume unit, we do have special costume Lyra, the only one that I actually don't have. And she's actually gained some pretty good stocks from the existence of Neo Champion Silver. Special costume Silver, sure. Whatever. Anyway, looking at her abilities here, she's got 284 defense, 300 defense, 284 special defense, 738 HP, 6 3x. She gets 838 health, 340 defense, 324 special defense. These are some good defensive stats, for sure. These are very solid defensive abilities, plus her HP is good, unlike Shauna's. It's like 200 points higher, which is pretty damn significant. She's got Mud Slap for accuracy debuffing, Mini Potion all to apply HP healing to allies, Earthquake, and then Initiate Infiltration, which raises all allies by 1. Raises the attack of all allies by 1, raises defense of all allies by 3, applies the type resistance effect to the user, and then the type resistance is of whatever the last attack that hit her was. So that's also very helpful. That applies even better defensive ability to her, because this means that, like, imagine they hit you with Ghost. Like, you're facing Phoebe or something in the stadium, she hits you with a Ghost move, you use this, you're now, like, at what, 20, is like 30% type resist? Is like rebuff? I don't know. Either way, you're now taking less damage from Ghost moves, you've got healing with Mini Potions, and she's already got pretty good defensive stats in general, so now you're just a better tank. Again, very, very helpful for enemies that use a consistent type of move, mostly like stadium battles where they're specifically typed Elite 4. She's got rebuff reducing hit ground, which lowers target ground rebuff when the user's attack move is successful each battle, first time each battle. Team Mighty Sync 9, increasing physical moves next of all allies by 1 after using the sync move once. And then Team Beef Up 9, raising attack of all allies by 1 when the user's hit by an attacking move. So she's a very physical support with physical defense buffing and attack buffing, as well as being able to lower ground rebuff, which is mostly a physical type. There are exceptions, right? Like Naomi, just pretty much just Naomi, right? Yeah, I mean, unless you're running Mud Slap Ingo and Mud Slap Hapu. I think Mud Shot is special. Yep. If you want to run Mud Shot, sure. Whatever, either way. So she's able to help out a lot of physical allies with that as well. So if you do run her for ground because of that ground rebuff, you are then also, again, helping out more physical allies because they want the attack buffs. The physical moves next from her sync move is pretty helpful as well. Pretty good stuff. I say she gained a good bit of stocks from the existence of Silver, but also she gained pretty good buffs from the new ground units, right? Good for Giovanni, because he does appreciate that ground rebuff for his Crushing Earthquake and his Sync Nuke. Roxanne obviously appreciates it just for being a ground unit, and of course also her attack support is helpful, so Roxanne can start using her Buddy move quicker, and then Adamant obviously just appreciates it again for being a ground character, effectively. He doesn't need anything pretty much from Lyra. Though Lyra also does help out Adamant for healing him, right? Though the fact that he does want less HP to do more damage, the fact that, like, if you get maybe too low in health and you want to heal up, we got Lyra's Mini Potions to cover that. So, I mean, she does help out there, too. Again, she's just a great ground support in general, or great foreground characters, rather. She benefited again from Silver because Silver does have the Johto circle, right? Silver does set the Johto circle, which means that any Johto ally on the team is going to be getting buffs and helping buff Silver and other allies with Johto Passion here. So having Lyra on the team is applying an extra 10% power up as well as an extra 3% damage reduction, which in itself isn't crazy. But also if you want to combine Silver alongside Signet Suit Giovanni, who is also Johto, you've got yourself a maxed out Johto circle for 40% power buff to all allies and 14% damage reduction. And then you've got Lyra, who is directly buffing Giovanni with ground rebuff and whatnot, as well as providing team heals and etc. So you've got both of these characters working quite well together, Giovanni and Lyra, and then Silver here as well, applying sand for Giovanni, and as well as just still being able to do great damage, right? It's not like an absurd setup, but it is a viable one, no less. So that's helpful. But again, that's mostly Lyra's big thing, is that she's useful for ground support, so if you want a ground character to be stronger, Lyra can probably help out quite a bit in that. Looking at the grid, Berserk Bunch on the training move for better attack support. I don't think that's necessary because of team beef up. Sync Damage Guard for some better damage reduction ability. She's got Sterner stuff too. Again, just more damage reduction stuff. You may want to pick it up if you are going to go for Berserk Bunch. It's just like right there, but you don't have to. Free Vengeance 2 is fine. Makes it so you can use Earthquake if you want to, though I mean, I don't think using Earthquake is an amazing idea. I mean, accuracy debuffs from Mud Slap are probably just better. First Aid 4 for some better healing. Focus Group 9 for crit buffs when the user's Pokemon uses attack move, or user's Pokemon uses a move. This is helpful for sure, because now it means that she doesn't buff just attack and defense, but she's also able to buff crit, which is very helpful. Sands of Time, this is probably more useful if you are running her in the setup with like any other ally that needs sand, right? Like Silver, who's able to set it, Variety Giovanni, who's able to set it. These characters, right, who are pretty gauge hungry. This is, well, Silver's not that gauge hungry, but Giovanni is, right? But it's able to help out with team gauge, right? So Sands of Time 2 is probably a bit more viable for her, just because you're going to be probably running her with sand wanting allies. But I mean, it's not like absurd. It's not that crazy of an ability. But yeah, Focus Group 2, Focus Group 9, First Aid 4. Team Wide's Entry 2 for ally special defense buffs. This does help out on the special side because she is a more physical, definitely a more physical leaning character. So having that special buffing is helpful as well. Treble 9 on Earthquake for speed debuffs. Relatively helpful, but also consider the gauge use. This is why Free Venge 2 is probably better, because you can combine that with Trip Up 9, get speed debuffs, and not have to worry too much about gauge. And then Mini Potion All, NPR, and Master Healer. I'm going to be honest, especially like in stadium battles where I'm running half HP, I really like running mini potions, so this is actually pretty good for me. I will opt to run this. Maybe not NPR, or at least maybe not that much NPR, but I mean, I'll run this, right? So, could do that. I don't think I need this. Let's see, this would probably be a grid I could run. If I want crit buffs, I can run Focus Group. If I don't want crit buffs, I can run Sync Damage Guard. If I don't want to sync with her, well, I can run, I don't know, maybe Team-wise Entry, maybe go for the mini potions. Probably this, though. Yeah, probably something like that. Either way, depends on what you want to run with her. I don't think she's a crazy support, but she is relatively helpful for ground allies. Trip Up 9 is good for activating like a few specific ground characters and just characters in general. Like Clay, he wants speed debuffs for his Hunter's Instinct, as well as his NA multiplier with Cakewalk. Courtney, I think... Actually, no, Courtney doesn't want speed debuffs, does she? Yeah, I'm stupid. Does Roxanne want speed debuffs? Yeah, she's got Slow Opponent Sync, but she also is able to apply the debuffs herself, so it's not really that absurd. But I mean, there you go. Slow Opponent Sync 5, you're able to help activate. I don't remember any other ground characters that really want speed debuffs off the top of my head. Yeah. That's about it, but there's obviously enough characters in the game that like have Cakewalk or have Hunter's Instinct that could benefit enough from the speed debuffing, so like, there you go. It's a pretty big list. Gordy, Signature Diantha, Kukui wants sand. Obviously, Brock, as we mentioned, wants sand. So, I mean, those two characters can work pretty well for the debuffing ability of Lyra. So, sure, if you want to. And then again, she's mostly fine on the rest of the grid. The crit buffs are great. First Aid 4 for her healing and Sync Damage Guard are great as well for her defensive utility. And then the mini potions are just helpful for making sure your allies are staying alive. But I'd say most of her stuff comes from the base kit, obviously. Unlike Zinnia, where I think a lot of Zinnia's biggest hype comes from her grid, I think that Lyra's biggest abilities are from her base kit for the most part. Being able to buff ally attack defenses, type resist, mini potions in base, ground rebuff is the biggest thing, some physical moves next on sync, and then just infinite attack infinite attack buffing ability with beef up 9. Pretty helpful. So There you go. There's a general overview. If I were to rank these characters in general, I would probably say Steven easily at number 1. He is way too absurd. Zinnia probably at number 2 because she is really, really strong. She does a lot of damage, mostly with her nuke, as well as that debuffing utility, or stat stealing utility, as well as the no stat increase ability is extremely helpful. Lyra at 3rd with her ground. Big use on specifically ground teams, but her recent quote-unquote resurgence with Neo Champion Silver plus Sigma Suit Giovanni, or even Variety Giovanni, that setup can also work out very, very well. And then also, finally, I probably put Shauna because just her random stat buffing is great, mostly for the Gauntlet, but just outside of that, I don't think it's all that absurd, and I think she's a little bit too frail, honestly. Even despite the fact that she's got like full bracing command 9, I still think Shauna's a little bit too frail. Honestly, her HP is just too low. 700 HP. You need a little bit more. Like plus 100, you would have probably been a little bit better off. Like again, look at Lyra for 838 health. Come on, could have done a little bit better. Whatever. Anyway, that's the overview for all the special costume units. They're all really strong for sure. Again, I would not recommend summoning on the banner just because it's 4 units split by 2% for a 0.5% individual pull rate. If you just want like Steven or Zinnia or just one specific character, you're going to have a tough time pulling. You're probably going to go to Pity, and on the Tiered Scout, it's 10,000 paid gems, I think. So that's also quite costly. You have better value in going for the Variety Select or the Pokefair Selects if you haven't, so keep that in mind. But yeah, I'll see y'all later. Hope y'all enjoyed. Good luck if you do plan to summon, and definitely good luck tomorrow when we face Palmer. I will try to have a video out for that. Just depends on if we can win or not. If I can't beat Palmer, then I'm probably going to post like a montage of me getting absolutely decimated. Whatever, yeah. I'll see y'all later. I hope y'all enjoyed.